You're thinking about buying a home in Pennsylvania? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to cut through all the jargon and make one of the most important parts of your journey crystal clear: your relationship with your real estate agent. It all comes down to knowing who is truly on your side. Okay, so buying a home, it's a huge deal, right? It's incredibly exciting, but let's be honest, it can also feel kind of overwhelming and complex. Before you even start scrolling through listings, there's a really big decision you have to make, and it's all about understanding who is legally required to look out for your best interests.
So you need an agent. They seem great, and you start looking at houses. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? But here's the question you really need to ask yourself. Is that agent working for me, the buyer? Are they working for the seller, or are they just kind of in the middle? The answer can have a massive impact on your purchase.
Now, the good news is you don't have to figure this out all by yourself. Pennsylvania law actually has your back here. It says that agents have to be totally upfront about their role from the very first serious conversation you have, and they do this using a very specific document.
So before an agent, let's call him Scott, can show you a single house or talk about your finances, he has to give you something that lays out all the different ways he can work with you. This is so important because it means the power to define this relationship is in your hands right from the get-go.
And this is that document. It's called the Pennsylvania Consumer Notice. I know. It might look like just another piece of paperwork in a huge stack of paperwork, but really, you should think of this as your roadmap. It explains every type of relationship you can have, and getting this right is the key to having the right person fighting for you.
All right, so this consumer notice breaks it all down into 3 key options for you as a buyer. Let's dig into what they are, and we're going to focus on 2 huge things: loyalty and confidentiality.
First up, the buyer agent. The easiest way to think about this person is your personal advocate, your champion in the real estate world. When you sign an agreement to have a buyer agent, you're hiring them and their company to work only for you. Their entire legal and ethical duty is to you and nobody else.
So what does that mean? Well, the rules are super clear. They have to act in your best interest. That means fighting to get you the best price, the best terms, and this is huge. They have a duty of confidentiality. Anything you tell them, how much you're willing to spend, your bottom line in a negotiation, how quickly you need to move, all of it stays completely private.
Okay, option number 2 is something called a designated agent. Now, this one's a pretty smart solution to a situation that happens all the time. What if your agent and the seller's agent work for the same real estate company? Here's how it plays out. The head honcho at the brokerage, the supervising broker, kind of acts as a neutral overseer for the deal. But, and this is the most important part, your designated agent is still 100% on your team. They have the exact same duties of loyalty and confidentiality as a buyer agent. The company just has to make sure there are walls up so your private info isn't shared down the hall.
All right, and then there's the third option, the transaction licensee. And I gotta tell you, this one is a whole different ballgame. A transaction licensee isn't really an agent for either side. Think of them less like a coach for your team and more like the referee for the whole game. Their job is just to help the transaction happen, not to represent you.
And here's the line you need to underline, highlight, and circle. No duty of loyalty or confidentiality. Seriously, that is a massive difference. Now, they still have to be honest and tell you about any problems they know of with the property, but they are not on your team. They are a neutral party just moving the paperwork along.
Okay, so those are the 3 big roles. Let's really put them under the microscope and compare them side by side on those 2 things that matter most when we're talking about a deal this big: loyalty and confidentiality.
And wow, this chart really says it all, doesn't it? With a buyer agent or a designated agent, you get a big yes for both loyalty and confidentiality. They are legally required to be on your side and to keep your secrets. With a transaction licensee, it's a no across the board. They have no legal duty to be loyal to you.
So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get the fancy legal terms, but what does this actually mean for me in the real world? Well, let me tell you. It means everything when you're sitting at the negotiation table. Let's walk through an example.
Just imagine this. You're working with a transaction licensee. You find the perfect house. It's listed at $300,000. You want to offer $290,000. But you lean over to the licensee and say, you know what? I love this place. I'd go all the way up to my max of $310,000 to get it. What happens with that info?
Now, the law does throw you a small bone. It says right here in the regulations that the transaction licensee is forbidden from going to the seller and saying, hey, they'll pay more than what they wrote down. That's a very specific, important protection. But pay close attention to what the law doesn't say.
And this is the catch. This is the whole shebang right here.
While they can't spill the beans on that exact number, they have absolutely no general duty to keep your other information secret. Could they hint that you're in a huge rush to move? Or that you've got cash burning a hole in your pocket from your last sale? Or that you called this your dream house? You bet. And any little bit of that can signal to the seller, hey, just wait, they'll pay more.
So when you boil it all down, it looks like this. With a buyer agent, you can have an open, honest strategy session. You can say, let's start here, but here's my absolute limit. With a transaction licensee, you have to play your cards incredibly close to the chest because that facilitator isn't required to keep your strategy a secret.
Look, at the end of the day, the choice is 100% yours. That's the great thing about the law in Pennsylvania. It gives you the power to decide. You can have a dedicated advocate, an in-house specialist, or a neutral referee. So as you start this incredible journey, the biggest question isn't just which house am I going to buy? It's who do I want in my corner when it's time to fight for it?